when we shall get him back, I need to take this opportunity as our MC is having a challenge with technical problems. Let me take this opportunity to welcome everybody to this e-conference of Minerals Africa Development Institution. This is one of our monthly series of mineral resource conferences that MADI undertook to deliver since its inception in June this year. As you may recall, some of you who participated in our inaugural event, we had themes or touching on every aspect of mineral resource development. And this is because we wanted to look at Africa and mineral resource development post-COVID-19 pandemic. And if I refer you back to now that theme and see where Africa is as of now, you will see the importance of this meeting. Africa is going to be impacted by the COVID-19 more than any other countries in the world. However, it is an opportunity for Africa to rethink and look at its own narrative. At the African Union Commission, we've been going through the industrialization week that we get every year. Some of the facts that has come through tell us that 22 million people in Africa will slide back into poverty. This is according to the World Bank and IMF measure of poverty as people living under $1 a day. Of course, for Africa, that definition is being challenged because some of the people don't live on economic money, they live on subsistence, but then live better. So what Africa has to do in order to respond to the impact of COVID-19 is not the same way as the rest of the world would have to respond. Because for Africa, it's an opportunity to look inwards and see how do we do it for ourselves. What COVID-19 has taught us is that we have to fend for ourselves. We cannot depend on anybody. We have to be self-sustaining. And the mineral resource sector is going to be a key sector for Africa post-COVID-19, if there will actually be a post-COVID, because COVID seems to be here with us for the rest of all the years. So what can Africa do in order to really not get those impacts of COVID? When the mineral resource sector resuscitates either post or during, and of course the mining industries are looking how to do it. They are trying to look at not employing people. They are trying to look at using AI, artificial intelligence under Industry 4.0. They are looking at how do you conduct social distance if they have, but at the same time, they have to make money. And therefore, they will have to come to Africa to continue investing because Africa is still there and mineral resources are still underground. In this regard, Africa will have to either think on either giving more incentives to attract more investment or lose employment as companies go into Industry 4.0 and automate more than employing laborers to go in and extract. So for Africa, the fallback position for Africa post-COVID-19 or during COVID-19 or continuing with COVID-19, I don't know whether it will go to COVID-20 or whatever, is to actually look at who is African private sector and work with it and promote it. And for Africa, artisan and small-scale mining is the African private sector in the mineral resource sector. It's the domestic mineral resource sector. So we need to look at how Africa has to look at how do you harness your own to benefit or to ensure that it supports you in achieving what you want. What does Africa want? Africa wants development. Africa wants wealth creation. Africa wants jobs for its high population of young people. Africa wants good roads. It wants good industries. Urbanization is going up. I've alluded to the poverty incidences, but we can look at the other side of opportunity that almost 60% of arable land is still in Africa. 40% of the world water is in Africa. All the resources that are being talked about are in Africa and are still there and are still underground, and some of them have not been explored. So Africa needs to rethink and needs to look at what is termed as artisanal and small-scale mining, or what you may call African private, minerals private sector, because that's what it is. Our African young people, women, youth, in some cases even employing child labor, are still scratching the soil to look for the livelihood. So how do we make it a sustainable sector to support not only themselves as looking for economic livelihood, but also making sure that they can contribute optimally to what the government wants, to contribute to social development, to economic development, to environmental protection, to all the issues that we know Africa wants. So within the framework of what Africa wants, which is the Agenda 2063, but also within the framework of the UN SDGs, all those goals that SDGs have put there, there are opportunities that the SDG, the artisanal small-scale mining, can actually contribute more than the big mining companies through this period to attaining some of those goals, in terms of reducing the poverty incidence that would have slipped back because of COVID, reducing the, increasing the social indicators, women having good services and so forth. So in that regard, we at Minerals Africa Development Institution, we believe that the artisanal small-scale mining sector is very important for Africa. That's why we had two conferences. One was in September, which we had SM1, in which we explored a number of issues that impact the artisanal small-scale mining. This is the second part two. We are looking at from formalization, because all the solutions that we had from the first e-conference, everybody is focusing on formalization. We had, for instance, Gavin from University of Sussex telling us that he is developing what he's terming as formalization bubble. We have, everybody has talked about formalization, but those who are in the sector that we have spoken to, and we have artisan, I'm sure, listening in this project, they will tell you in this conference, they will tell you that formalization in itself isn't enough. Once you formalize them, you give them biometric IDs, you know who they are, but they still have to make business. They have to be professional. So this conference wants to look at from being formalized into professionalization. How do we ensure that they can achieve, business development? They can achieve growth. They can come from artisanal, become formal, become small, become medium, eventually become big. We want to look at how they can access technology, finance. How can we work in a safe environment for their health and environment? We want to look at how do we promote smaller scale medium enterprises within the sector. How do we create those jobs that are very decent, skilled, while we also support those unskilled, but also promote skilled. So I want to welcome everybody on this meeting. I wasn't introduced because my colleague has had technical problems. My name is Frank Mjenyi, which I'll do at the end. I'm a founder and also chairman of the board of Minerals Africa Development Institution. We are here to work with Africa and for Africa. We are here to de-risk the sector. We are here to ensure that we do not continue exporting raw materials. We add value to them, which those that we can export and we cannot competitively add value to them, but we can use money to go towards development of our side stream linkages, our energy, our roads, our infrastructure. All these things depend on mineral resources. There is nothing that you can achieve without mineral resources. There is nothing that any country has developed without a manufacturing sector. So our resources, both natural resources and human resources, human capital is immense on the continent. We have the highest number of young people between the age of 18 and 35 who are employable. A number of them are trying to cross the deserts and oceans, and a number of them are dying, trying to look for jobs where they think there are green pastures. And that's where our minerals are going in raw form, feeding those industries. But our people, even the migration policy of those countries may not allow you to go in. So people try to go in. We are hearing of smuggling. We are hearing of human trafficking and so forth. Human trafficking is happening where some of them are paying to be human trafficked in order to go and look for green jobs where they think there are jobs. Yet there are jobs on the continent, and we have resources to create those jobs. And that's what MADI wants to look at. We want to attract responsible investment in the large mining companies. We need those investments coming in. We need to add value. We need to look at the way we work with the rest of the world. In our inaugural conference, one speaker from South Africa, Musa, told us that Africa has what the world wants, and the world has what Africa wants. So let's work together with the investors from outside, with our investors in Africa, with our artisanal small-scale mining, build them up, formalize them, professionalize them, let them become strong businessmen and women in order to contribute optimally to African vision, the vision of Africa, of a peaceful country, living, managing their own industry, their own affairs, but at the same time, having a strong impact on the global arena. So with those words, I want to hand over, if our MC is back.
Hello.
I want to hand over to Raymond to take us through the agenda, and then we can start officially with our speakers. Raymond, if your system is okay, take over. I was covering you on that. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Mujeni. Thank you for holding the fort. I had a slight technical challenges. I hope you can hear me now. Can you?
Loud and clear.
Thank you so much. Well, ladies and gentlemen, Dr. Mujeni has welcomed you already, but I will also say welcome and good afternoon or good morning or good evening, wherever you are. He's given a few remarks already, but it's my singular pleasure to let you know that Dr. Mujeni is a product of Harvard and a few prestigious institutions in London. He is currently the coordinator of the Africa Continental Free Trade Agreement, and also a senior industry advisor to the African Union Commission. He adheres to Pan-African beliefs, and he has indescribable passion for the continent of Africa. So he's also as we already told you, he's also the founder and also the board chair of MADI. So welcome once again. Today we have a smorgasbord of presenters who will be listening to His Excellency Majala Mlagui, who is the Deputy Governor in Kenya. We'll also listen to Dr. Ameni Ashford, who is also a board member of MADI, and also Dr. Amina, who is also a gold miner and a leader in women in mining in Ghana. We'll listen to Christina Villegas. I hope I mentioned it well. She is the director at PAC, and also Minsozi Sibeso, who is also acting deputy director in Namibia. Thereafter, we'll crown it with a business development manager from Mine Lab in Dubai. They'll be discussing a lot of issues regarding value addition and the challenges and opportunities for formalization, and also the mines to market, expanding the PAC world model for Africa, and also the challenges and opportunities for women in mining, and also supporting small-scale enterprises. Because MADI is headquartered in Uganda, we will also hear from opening remarks from a government representative, Honorable Vincent Kedi. And so that will give way for moderation. Dr. Mujeni will also come back to assist me in moderating the program. So once again, I welcome you. I would like to use this opportunity also, as he said, Africa has what the world needs, and the world wants what Africa has. That was a comment I picked just now from what Dr. Mujeni put across. Now, an estimated third of the world's known mineral resource reserves are located in Africa. And when we say a third, perhaps sometimes we hear it and gloss over it, but give it a thought. What that means is that when we say a third, we are virtually saying that when you compare the known mineral resource from, let's say, Japan, you add that of Australia, you add what China has, let's add what India has, let's come back to the Middle East, let's add what Europe has, even Canada, United States, Latin America, and South America. When you compare every mineral resource known that all these areas I've mentioned have, Africa has 33%, and the rest of the world has 66%. Let's say you are a group of 6 or 5 and you have 33% share of the resource or the assets, then you are very, very significant. But you wouldn't know how significant you are if you don't know what you have, or if you are unable to quantify the resources you have. And that is one of the challenges Africa has. But those who have an idea of what Africa has have trooped in, as Dr. Bujeni put across. Some of them are the big money companies we know. And there is, don't get me wrong, there is nothing wrong with coming to partner and assist Africa to exploit her resources if the negotiations are fair. But how can Africa negotiate fairly when she doesn't know what she has? These are some of the questions that I'm putting across as preliminary questions that would have to be thinking of. So for the past umpteen years, Africa has virtually dashed out the natural resource for pittance, and we still do today. And so Africa's natural resource is mined and shipped with no value added. But take note of this: value addition is the greatest source of employment or the greatest source of job creation. So Africa should be able to tell why her employment rates are so high compared to others. Africa should be able to explain why her youthful manpower will risk their lives across the Mediterranean seeking greener pastures. It's unemployment. Let's back this statement with data from IMF. For example, in 1980, the unemployment rate for Germany was 3.4. This year, the unemployment rate for Germany is 4.3. So for the past 40 years, the unemployment rate for Germany was just had increased 1.1 points, which is impressive. What is even more impressive is China's unemployment rate. It was 4.9 in 1980, and it is 3.9 this year. China controlled her unemployment rate by decreasing it by 1.1% or points in a 40-year period. That's between 1980 and 2020, China controlled her unemployment rate. And you know where almost everything is currently being manufactured at, where value is added to the raw materials that produce products for the entire world. So value addition on our natural resource is the #1 source of unemployment. Let's look at Africa, by the way. IMF doesn't have document or IMF hasn't documented the unemployment rates of about 80% of the countries in Africa, but they have data on South Africa. So let's use South Africa's unemployment rate for Africa for the purposes of our empirical understanding. In 1980, the unemployment rate of South Africa was 9.2. Fast forward to today, the unemployment rate is 37.0, making a 40-year increase of 27.8%, while all the others are even 1.1 or negative. So we have to also bear in mind that we have the highest population of youth. Africa's percentage of the global population had been growing at a rate of 2% per decade, but this will even change to 3% per decade in the next from 2020 to 2030. So from this discussion so far, there are two critical issues of concern that we can identify. Africa has impending increase in population and a disproportionate increase in unemployment. There isn't much we can do about the population now, but the disproportionate unemployment rate needs immediate attention, and value addition is staring in our face, waving and beckoning us as for us to choose her. Value addition to Africa's mineral resource is a panacea to a lot or myriads of the challenges we have. So there is no better time for Africa to wake up, reevaluate her natural resource assets, and renegotiate if possible. That is why I'm particularly happy to hear that recently the state of Mali was reviewing all her natural resource agreements. But Mali can't do that in isolation. I will use this platform and charge African Union or the leaders of Africa to review a charter and get involved in helping the continent get fair negotiations in this respect. Imagine if African Union get $1 each on every ounce of mineral mined from the continent and redirect that to developing the remote areas of the continent. That, I say, is the food of thought. Though the continent started on a wrong foot with unfavorable negotiations in our mineral resource space, and today we are virtually giving away our natural resource that is mined by the large-scale companies and hauled off the continent without adding any value, all is not lost. Indeed, Africa has reserved the artisanal and small-scale mining activities for herself and for her people. This is also being threatened at the moment with Indo-Africa and Chino-Africa clandestine incursions or pseudo partnerships. But regardless, Africa must guard the ASM sector with her heart. Our research currently shows that by 2030, that's the 10 years from now, 7 out of 10 Africans will be directly or indirectly involved in artisanal small-scale mining space. Either they are helping solve a problem, engaging in it, or thinking about it. Currently, and globally, data show that artisanal small-scale mining sector contributes to about 20 to 40% of global production, depending on which mineral we are looking at. Note that it's up to 40%. So small-scale miners contribute up to 40%. So look at it this way. If all the billions of dollars and the large-scale multinational mining companies have, plus the huge machines and the power they command, can produce the rest of the 60%, and if these small-scale artisanal mining operators, informal or not formalized, some using raw manpower and crude machinery, can produce 40%, then we need to pay particular attention to the ASM sector as a continent. But how do we do that? We have scholars who have argued that the formalization of the ASM sector will let governments pay attention to the sector. So we at MADI believe that that formalization process is a good start, because formalization is a process on its own. So why don't we target it and move it a notch up to professionalization, which is at the other end of the formalization process. This is why we are having this conference today, the second on ASM. And I've already related the smorgasbord of distinguished experts who will be speaking on in their respective capacities as experts in what they do. So, well, in conclusion, to move towards a sustainable ASM sector on the continent, we need to build our capacity through local institutions. We need organizations. We need to encourage the miners to form cooperatives and associations. We need to collaborate, but we also need to find the finance. They need capital. Above all this, we need to let them be introduced to technology. But if you don't take anything at all from this intro that I have given, note one thing. Remember this, that value addition is the greatest source of creating employment or job opportunities for the African continent. And Africa must consciously work on adding value to that 33% ownership we have in the known mineral resource of the world. The second point I would like you to pick is think about the possibility of having the African Union to be benefiting from every ounce of mineral mined on the continent and using that to develop in the continent. So that, for example, we can have the African Union Highway or Expressway from Dakar to Khartoum or from Cairo to Cape Town. Imagine that as a tangible legacy of the African Union in your small corner. Well, that is all I'll put across as an introductory commentary from my end. And at this juncture, I will invite the government representative, Honorable Vincent Keddy, to give us the opening remarks. I hope Honorable Keddy is online. Honorable Keddy, your audience.
Thank you very much. You couldn't have. Hello? Thank you very much, Raymond, for that very, very encouraging remarks. That you have been very great in trying to bring us to offer of the properly regulated artisanal and small-scale mining. I think that, sorry about that. Comes to Uganda, we've heard about this in our first conference. For introductory purposes, I'll say that my name is Vincent Keddy. I am the Assistant Commissioner for License Administration in Uganda's Energy and Mineral Development Ministry. And so when it comes to artisanal and small-scale mining in Uganda, just like I talked about earlier, importantly, previously, ASM here was known for its negative impacts. For example, environmental degradation, social impacts such as HIV/AIDS and so on, prevalent in those areas. You'd have insecurity in the areas. The local politics was quite very, very, and so many other negative impacts. That's what many people, when they hear about artisanal and small-scale mining, naturally tend to imagine. But just like Raymond has ably explained, this sector in itself, 90% of our mining activities here are artisanal and small-scale in nature. And so it is a very important sector for the economy, especially in regard to local employment, skills transfer, local service provision. This sector attracts a lot of people where mining is taking place. A lot of people come and provide services, and it's in several places in Uganda here. So, and the rest of the benefits, of course, are local value addition, just like Raymond has ably said, mining, because Raymond has really given us a very, very great insight. Sorry, I think my network went off a bit.
Okay, thank you.
I'm saying that some of the key interventions that we have done as a country have been to try to formalize and regularize our artisanal and small-scale mining sector. One of the methods has been to do biometric registration of all the actors in the sector. Second of all, we've been trying to gazette areas for ASM operations. Third, we've tried to extend services, for example, mineral exploration services, training in best practice mining, among others, business skills, basic exploration for these artisans. We've also had some small grants going out to these artisanal miners. In the future, we also are looking at avenues for facilitating access to cheap financing for these artisanal and small-scale mining actors, among others. So as we speak now, many of our artisans are actually fully licensed. When you go to the northeast part of the country where there's gold and marble, they are licensed, many of them. When you come to the eastern part, mostly gold, they're licensed. In the central, gold, they're licensed. In the western, gold and 3T tin tungsten tantalite, they're licensed. So we have tried to make efforts to recognize this sector and provide them with licenses. Importantly, our legal regime was also prohibitive previously, but in our new mining bill, we've tried to provide for a licensing regime for these artisanal mining actors by ensuring that the regime is progressive in nature, in the sense that one can be able to progress from one category of license, which is small scale in nature, to another one and upgrade onwards, and also facilitate that kind of interlinkage with other large scale actors where they can form partnerships and so forth. So as a country, we believe that our model is good, and we hope that the success as a register will be a model of excellence for another country in the future. I thank you all, and I look forward to fruitful deliberations. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Honorable Keddy, Vincent Keddy. We realize you had a few technical challenges, but that is one of the challenges with technology. So I would plead with members to understand, because we are all going through similar things. At this juncture, we would bring in our board chair, Dr. Dixon, to take over for the next two sessions. So I would hand over the mic to you, Dr. Frank Mujeni. Over to you, Frank.
Okay, thank you so much, Raymond. Thank you for that introductory remarks. And I want to, based on your recommendations, I want to, first of all, before I introduce our next speaker, to say that you are right, 33% is of the known resources, and almost 4/5 of Africa hasn't been explored yet. So the 33% is the geological information and data that is in our hands. So that means Africa needs to step up and do more exploration to know more of what we have. And you also alluded to that in your remarks, that Africa doesn't know how much they have, and we don't even know it specifically on the economic value when you go to mineral resource classification. The other point you raised, very importantly, is value addition. And we must add value to our resources to create jobs. You've alluded so much, and which is really a fact, that Africa doesn't have, has high unemployment level. Actually, some of the employment in Africa is disguised employment. If you talk about border riding in Uganda and so forth, better trading, that is not the business that you'd call business. Some of it is disguised employment or disguised unemployment. So Africa is unemployed, really. If you want to look at the actual people who are employed in the real job sector that earn a living, decent living, and that would form the middle class, there are very few. Therefore, value addition would create those decent jobs and increase middle class, increase employment, decent employment. The third one is very important, and you mentioned about having how to finance the development in Africa. That is very critical, and I want to say that Africa has been knocking its heads. Our heads of states have been knocking their heads how to develop, to find resources to finance our development agenda domestically. I want to mention here, and happy to mention that one of our board members, who is also the president of International Women Group in the world, Madam Dr. Asfo, has also been appointed chair of the interim chair of the African Business Council. And now the African Business Council is a policy organ of the African Continental Free Trade Area. It was recommended in the boosting of the intra-African trade that the African Continental Free Trade Area must have an African Business Council. It's one of the structures of the African Continental Free Trade Area Agreement. And one of us who is with us is going to be speaking after Her Excellency, Dr. Asfo Amani has been voted, nominated, voted in as the interim chair to lead the development of that mineral, of that private sector arm. And with that, it is very important to say that if you're going to look at that $1 that you mentioned, or 1%, or raising funds through sovereign wealth funds and so forth, and in our write-up in African structures, we do not have to reinvent the wheel. We know that the African heads of state have already endorsed an African investment bank, an African development. We already have a development bank, but we already have an African investment bank, which is an African, and an African development fund, which is supposed to fund Africa. These two institutions have never been operationalized. So I think the mineral resource sector, through both large-scale and small-scale mining, has the potential, and I agree with you, and this is something that MADI can take on together with African Business Council to see how do we operationalize mobilizing funding, resource mobilization domestically for development agenda for Africa. So those are our 3 recommendations. I thought I should highlight them because they are very important, and it's possible that MADI with partners can do that. Having said that, let me introduce our second speaker, Her Excellency Majara Mlagwi, who is the Deputy Governor of Taita Taveta County in Kenya. I have personally been honored to know Her Excellency for a long time. I think we met, and it's not coincident that she's speaking on this, but I think it was destined, because the first time we met in Brussels, we were actually discussing development minerals in Africa, and I heard her strongly argue about not calling them low value minerals. So Her Excellency has been working with African Union as part of the expert group. She was key in developing a number of instruments, including African Minerals Governance Framework, minerals and geological information